Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. Today is May 20th, 2024. This is episode 279. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. What is today's topic? We're going to be talking about my adventure heading down to Illinois for the event that Nate and Erin from Two Chicks Homestead were having. I went down there last weekend, so May 10th, 11th, 12th. I was down there over the Mother's Day weekend. They were hosting an event that was kind of, Toolman Tim was making his way back from events he had been doing. He had been down here in the States for almost 2 months. They live in Canada. He and his wife, Becky, live in Canada. They had been down here in the States for almost 2 months. So they were making the rounds, doing different events, and they swung through Illinois on their way back to Canada. So there was a little event there, a gathering of homesteaders. And so I went down there for that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that event today. I'm going to talk about some thoughts on community. And I'm also going to talk about the phrase, I hate people. But before we get to that, what has been happening on the lifestead? Well, I'm going to tell you something. For the last week, my husband was gone at an out-of-state training in New Mexico. So I was pretty much alone here on the homestead. And because he was gone, I had this great idea that I was going to get all these projects done while he was gone, right? Because there are things that I need him here for us to accomplish, right? These bigger projects that we're taking on this year. So I wanted to get as much done on various projects as I possibly could while I was here by myself. So when he is here, we could be the most productive with our time, right? So I had this huge long list of things that I was going to do. And here is something that I have learned about getting older and having a homestead. And this doesn't even really relate to just having a homestead. This is true of anything, okay? When I make a list of the things that I want to get done, I am making that list with a brain that still thinks she's 20 years old and has the energy of a 20-year-old and has the strength of a 20-year-old and has just everything of a 20-year-old, right? And so I make this list and then I go to attack that list, right? But my body is 45 years old, okay? And I'm looking at this list that my 20-year-old brain made. And this past week that my husband was gone, I came to the realization that there is just a huge difference between those two things, right? The list you think you're going to get done and the actual ability to get that fantasy list done. Y'all, there was a project on this list that my 20-year-old self thought was going to take 2 hours. That's what I had slated. I was like 2, maybe 3 hours if it rains, and I got to take a break. It's going to take me 2 hours. This was getting the Ruth Stout garden completely prepped, ready to plant, and then planting it. So that part of the garden was done. That would be our potatoes and our onions. Okay. So I'm like, yep, I'm going to get that done. I'll knock that out in a couple hours. It's going to be great. Y'all, do you know how long it took me to get that project done? It took 3 days. 3 days for me to get that project done. No, I'm not saying it took the complete span of 3 days, but I started the project and it was 3 days later until I completely had that project taken care of, in and amongst having to take water breaks, in and amongst having to take bathroom breaks because I drank so much water, in and amongst having to just take breaks because I was tired. And here's the other thing. I didn't have all the hay down from the hayloft in order to put on this garden, right? Because I wanted to put more hay on it from what was on it last year, right? So I have to go up into the hayloft. I have to throw this hay down. Some of it is hay bales. Most of it is loose because it's all old and the baling twine is coming apart, right? So I have to go up there. I have to throw it down. I have to haul it from where I have thrown it down from over to the garden. I have to spread it. I have to, there's this whole process. Some of you are laughing because you've already made this realization that it just takes longer. It takes longer because, first of all, we're not superhuman, even though we think we are, right? The other part is that we just get older and things just take longer. So Here's my advice to anybody who is starting a homestead who's much younger than I am. I want you to know it gets harder as you get older. But that's okay. The other thing that I've heard, because I've been talking about this a lot on social media. I made a TikTok about it. I made a reel about it. I talked about it on Facebook. And lots of people who are older than me have said, yep, that's what happens. It only gets harder. But here's the thing. Don't stop doing it. It's going to get harder. You're going to be sore. It's going to wear you out. But if you stop doing it, that's when you have trouble. It's very much one of those use it or lose it kind of things. So if you stop doing it, it's going to be really hard to try and pick it up again. So that is my shout out to all the 45-year-olds or 60-year-olds or however old you are. We're still doing it right. It's taken us longer, but it's okay. That was my big realization of the last week, was it's just taken longer. I do want to tell you that the rabbits arrived. That was part of going down to Nate and Erin's event. I knew that I was coming home with rabbits, and so it was super exciting. So the rabbits are here. Traveling with them was very easy. They are the quietest passengers I've ever ridden with. They're very quiet. They were very sweet. It was wonderful. No problem traveling that long drive with them. Got them home, put them in their cages, and I'm just having so much fun getting to know them. We do have them as our breeders for meat rabbits. They are only, let's see, when I'm recording this, they're probably 10 weeks old now. We're not going to be breeding them till they're 6 months old. So we've got some time to get to know them and figure them out before we really hop into meat production with our rabbits. But I'm super excited. I have to tell you their names. So one is named Slim Shady. One is named Beyonce, and one is named Sarah Mchoplin. So now I got to tell you how we came up with the name. When Nate and I were going through the rabbits and choosing which ones I was going to bring home, everybody was asking, everybody was kind of standing around watching this event, this process, and someone asked, so what are you going to name the rabbits? And I said, oh, they'll tell me their names, because I believe that, most things already know their names. You just got to listen and wait for them to tell you. And I said, I can't name them because, I can't say to this rabbit, okay, here's your name, because he's going to be like, my name is what? Now, if you are of a certain vintage, when you hear my name is what, you immediately think Slim Shady, right? So several of us standing around were of a certain vintage, and that was just what came out, Slim Shady, after I said that. And so we decided, well, obviously that is the boy's name, the buck's name. So Slim Shady became the boy. And one of the girls that I took was a very, she'd started off with a real rough life. She was kind of a survivor. I believe her mom had peed on her, and the little baby had gotten real wet and cold. And so they actually had to take her from that mom, and she was fostered by another mom. So she's kind of a survivor, right? She had a rough start. So I immediately was thinking of Destiny's Child's song, Survivor. So then I decided, well, I'm going to call you Beyonce, I guess. And the other one, Sarah Mchoplin, that is obviously a play on Sarah McLachlan from the late 90s. Because this bunny, she just needed a name of someone very sweet and gentle. She is just the sweetest little girl, very friendly and very gentle. And so that is the story of how my rabbits got their names. And now you know. What else can I tell you? I finally was brave enough and went out and harvested stinging nettle from my property. I have always grown up around stinging nettle. I thought everybody had stinging nettle. And I always knew that stinging nettle was something that was useful, but I mostly thought of it as a pain in my butt because it is so abundant. Here at the farm, everywhere I've lived, stinging nettle is so abundant. And so you try to be doing something and you'd get into a patch of stinging nettle and then you're miserable because it stings and it burns and it itches. And so I always thought of it more as a pain in the butt than something useful. But this year I decided I was going to be brave and I was going to go out and harvest some and see what I could do with it. And so I put on some gloves and I put on some long sleeves and I got some shears and I went out there and I picked off some leaves. And what I ended up doing was making some stinging nettle tea. And I thought, I don't know what this is going to taste like, but I like tea. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this. So the thing about the leaves is that after they are cooked or boiled, they no longer sting. So then you can handle them. So there you go. So I made some tea with it. It was actually super tasty, and it's really hard to describe what the taste is, but I don't know, it's sweeter than I thought it would be. It's more, it's just got a really, really awesome taste. So I don't know, if you haven't had it and you have the opportunity to actually make it from leaves that are available to you, do that. Otherwise, I know that you can get dried stinging nettle leaves. The other thing that I did was I sautéed the stinging nettle leaves in some butter and ate them, which is what you do after you use the leaves for tea. You just throw them in a cast iron pan and saute them up and then eat those. Really delicious. And so I'm actually going to work on an article and a video about stinging nettle. So that's the update I have for you. Things are getting very busy on the homestead. We are coming into that season where I'm not at the computer a lot. I'm not in my office a lot. I am mostly out on the farm, which is my favorite time of year. All right, so now that we have that update, let's move over to this main topic and talk about my thoughts on community and why I hate people. Or maybe I don't. So Nate and Erin from Two Chicks Homestead down in Illinois put on a great homesteader event. It was very, very low key. There were really no plans for the weekend. The only thing that was planned was Nate had decided he was going to show us how to process a rabbit because they had one that they needed to cull. And so that one was saved back for processing to do this demonstration. So shout out to Nate for getting that done, because I know it is really hard to do stuff when people are all standing there watching you. Like, that's really nerve-wracking. So shout out to you for getting that done and showing us. The rest of the weekend was just really low-key. It was talking. It was hanging out by the pond. It was walking down the lane and identifying plants, just because there were people there who happened to know what the plants were. And, oh, did you know you have this? And did you know you have this? It was really cool. We one of the nights we were down there, we were looking for the northern lights. It was very rare to see northern lights that far south. I see them very often at my house, and really, really often at our cabin in extreme northern Minnesota. But it was really cool that they were able to see them down there. So fun to be able to experience that with them. It was really just kind of like a bunch of friends getting together for the weekend and doing whatever, and also bringing some new friends along for the ride. I know there are lots of different ways that you can put together homesteading events. Some of them are very class heavy or workshop heavy, and some of them are very, very laid back, and this was very laid back. So really cool to experience that. Thank you for putting that on. Thank you for inviting everybody to your place, and thank you to their neighbor Craig, because a lot of the stuff took place on his next door property. So that was really cool. Fun to meet him. So just really awesome to open all of that you have up to a bunch of people who spent the night in tents and hung out and just had a great time. It was fun to see new people there. There were some people in the, that showed up that we all knew. We'd been at events together. Some of us we knew from, oh, I know you from online, what's your screen name, that kind of thing. There were other people there who were just very, very brand new to the community. And there was one particular gentleman who was there who was brand new, didn't know anybody there. And I talked to him for a little bit and I said, so what's your connection here? How did you hear about the event? And he kind of told me his story, introduced himself, and I heard all about him. And he was talking about how years ago he started listening to Joel Salatin and kind of came upon him, and he was like, what's this all about? And through that, he found Jack Spirko, and through that, he found Toolman Tim. And so Toolman Tim is where he had heard about this event, because Toolman Tim had shared it in his community that he was going to be at this event. And so this gentleman was like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to that. It's not far from my house. And so that's how he showed up at the event. So I'm sitting there talking with him, and he's at one point he laughed and he said that, sometimes it's really hard for me to take a chance on events or to reach out and find people to hang out with, because I kind of hate people. And I laughed and I said, you know what? I bet most of the people who are at this event right now would probably also say that. They would say, yeah, we really hate people. And yet here we all are together, right? We're all here at this thing together, even though we hate people. And so Toolman Tim is sitting there with his wife, Becky, and there's a few of us sitting around. And she piped up and she said, you know what I've learned about this whole I hate people thing? She said, you don't actually hate people. You're just around the wrong people. Okay? And I said, oh my gosh, Becky, I'm going to do a podcast about that. I'm going to credit you. So, Becky, here's the podcast that I'm doing off of what you said in that conversation. You don't actually hate people. You're just around the wrong people. And that's so true. If you're having a good time, you're probably around your people. We're all people, right? So when we say, I hate people, we don't mean everybody. We don't mean actual people. There's just certain people, right? But it's so common for people to throw out that phrase, oh, I hate people. I just hate people. When I say you don't hate people, you're just around the wrong people, you have to understand that you are the wrong people for some people. And sometimes that's hard to swallow, right? And sometimes that's fine. It's fine. Because here's the thing. This is not a better than kind of thing. It's not like groups of people are better than, other ones. This is not a superiority thing. This is not a hierarchy of different groups of people. We all like different stuff. We're all drawn to different stuff. We all want different stuff. And I think that's why it's so important that we find our people. Because life is a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable if you are around your people, the right people for you to be around. And that's why these community gathering events are so important, because it helps us to find our people. Now, there are two other things that I learned while I was at this event. One of them is about myself, and one of them is just a general kind of comment that I really realized while we were at this particular event. And I probably realize it at every event that I attend, that has to do with homesteading, but it was really apparent at this event. So the thing about this event, before I tell you the two things that I learned, is I didn't tell people I was going to this event. I didn't make it public that I was going to this event. I didn't even share about this event that Nate and Erin were having on my social media, because I just wanted to attend as Amy. Erin is my best friend, and Nate is a very good friend of mine, right? So they're my besties, right? And so I just wanted to go to their event as Amy, their very good friend, right? I didn't want to attend as Amy from A Farmish Kind of Life, if that makes sense. So I didn't really tell anybody I was going except for Nate and Erin and Tim. Now, here's the first thing that I learned. And this is the thing I learned about myself. And I'm telling you this because it may apply to you, or it may give you some insight into other people. The number one thing that I learned while I was there, I am really freaking quiet at big gatherings. Really quiet. Okay? If you don't know me personally and you get to meet me, you are going to think I'm really quiet and antisocial. You're going to be like, what is wrong with this woman? She does a podcast. She does all these videos. She's like always on social media. And now I'm at this event with her and she not saying two words. Like, what the hell is wrong with her? Is she upset? Is she mad that she's here? Did someone say something? Like, what is going on? Right? If you do know me, so if you are family, friends, or whatever, like you do know me, and you go to a gathering and I'm there and there are more than 4 people there, you're going to think, oh my God, she's such a snot. Or is she mad about something? Did someone say something? Because here is what I learned. And I think that I really picked this up because it was pointed out to me by Ashley through various conversations that we had. Ashley is a wonderful person from our community, and actually we rode down to the event together. She also lives in Minnesota. And so here's what I figured out. When I am in a group of more than 3 or 4 people, I immediately go into observation mode and processing mode. Immediately. It doesn't matter if it's an extended family gathering of people I have known my entire life. It doesn't matter if I'm at like a church get-together. It doesn't matter if I am with a bunch of friends that I love dearly. If there are more than 3 or 4 people, I go into observation mode without even realizing it. Because here's the thing. My head is really, really loud all the time. All the time. It never shuts up. So I don't realize that I've been sitting in a group of people around a campfire and I haven't said anything for 20 minutes. Because my head is loud and I'm listening to everything that everybody is saying and I'm processing and I'm like answering in my head and I'm thinking and I'm calculating and I'm like processing everything that's happening, but I'm not talking. And I'm telling you that because there are lots of people like that. You might be that person and you might not be aware of it. So be aware of it. I'm not saying that you need to change for other people, but I'm saying if you've been sitting in a group of people for 20 minutes and you haven't said anything, You might want to say something, or you might want to just at least be aware that people might think, what the hell is wrong with her? Like, why has she not said anything? Why is she so antisocial? Right? Be aware of that. And you might be around people who are like that. Maybe that's not you, but you might be around people who are like that. Like someone who's been at the campfire for 20 minutes and hasn't said anything, and you think they're mad or upset or angry or distracted or whatever. They might just be processing stuff in their head. They might have a whole bunch of like crazy, crazy stuff going on in their head, just taking in all the conversations and all that information. And they're actually really happy. And they're like, I love this. This is awesome. I love being here. But they're not saying anything. Okay. So just be aware that there are people like that. You guys, I went to a wedding Saturday the 18th, and like weddings are huge, right? And I'm just people watching and I'm having an awesome time, but I'm not saying anything. I'm always listening to the conversation, hardly responding. That's something that I need to work on. But part of that is just being aware of it. But it was this particular weekend at Nate and Erin's that I just became super aware of. You know what? Wow, there's people here. And as soon as it's more than 3 or 4 people, I go into shutdown mode. Like just, okay, now I'm going to listen and I'm going to observe and I'm going to watch and I'm going to process. So that is just a commentary on something that I learned. If it's useful for you, that's awesome. If not, I don't know. All right. The second thing that I really learned this weekend at the event is that the thing that brings you together as a community is not necessarily the thing, okay? And what I mean by that is we were all there because we had some kind of interest in homesteading or prepping or self-reliance or, that's kind of the vibe that kind of brought us there, right? Those are the communities that were kind of gathering. But I noticed as we all sat around and talked, it was that, yeah, there were conversations that related to homesteading or prepping or self-reliance or self-sufficiency or stuff like that. But I would also say, y'all, that a good 75% of the conversations had absolutely nothing to do with homesteading or prepping or self-reliance. Nothing to do with it. We were just all talking about life. We were talking about sports. We were talking about music. We were talking about the VFW. We were talking about all these different things, talking about kids, talking about all this different stuff, right? It had nothing to do with what you would think the community is that brings us together. Because here's the thing, we're all people, right? We're all living. You guys know that I'm really big on lifesteading, okay? Because there is so much more to our life than how we grow potatoes or whether or not we like kombucha or how many rabbits we have. When you gather as a homesteading community or you gather as a prepping community or you gather as a self-reliance community, eventually you're going to run out of homesteading or prepping or self-reliance things to talk about. And then things are going to get real quiet, right? That's why I think people really love the idea of lifesteading because it encompasses so many things. So while I think we have these groups of people, so like homesteading or self-reliance or prepping or whatever, there are obviously things we are drawn to, and there are interests that put us together with different people. But I think it's so important to say, okay, yep, rabbits, chickens, tomatoes, potatoes, all that great stuff. And also, how are your kids doing? And also, what kind of car do you drive? And also, oh my gosh, this issue that I'm dealing with my aunt about, or like, this is just life stuff, you guys. It's life stuff. And that's what's so important to build these communities because life happens, y'all. It doesn't stop happening until it stops happening. And you need people around for that, to help you through that, to help you process that, to help you go through it, to celebrate with you with all this stuff. So yes, community is awesome. And we find these communities based on a thing that brings us together. But that thing eventually isn't the thing anymore. So that's why it's important to build these communities now so you can figure all that stuff out. All right. So that is just some thoughts that I had from this weekend. You learn stuff about people by actually being with them. And we all have a ton of online friends, online communities, and knowing someone online is great. But knowing someone because you actually spent time in person with them is completely different. And if you have the chance to attend some kind of event or gathering, do it. It doesn't even have to be a big complicated event. It doesn't have to be anything like that. But figure out a way to get people together to just spend time together. We are all busy. We all have a million things going on, right? But just having that time to get together, even if you're just all meeting up somewhere for a couple hours, just to make those in-person connections, because you will learn so much more about people being in person with them than you will ever learn about them online. That is just the reality of the difference between online and in-person communication. So there you go. Those are just some of my thoughts from this weekend. I now am going to head out and see what my husband is doing with the tractor right now. So thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. You guys could be listening to literally anything right now, but you keep coming back here. Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your awesomeness. Now go spend some time with people. Have a great week, you guys, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.